Good evening and welcome to the Press Box. My name is Melissa Ponzio, and for the next 30 minutes I'll be your host. With me is Jeff Richardson sitting in for Jay and Ty. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing good.
Just fine. Glad to be here.
Great.
Thanks for coming.
Alrighty, and I'd like to remind everyone that this is a live show. You can call in with any questions, comments, or criticisms. The number here is 873-6713. And we're going to start things off tonight with the Atlanta Knights, and they had a little success on their road trip.
Well, a little success lately with the nice 5-1 win, Jeff. But when you look at the schedule, I really don't think Phoenix is that good of a team. And that they lost 2 games over there, close games, but yet they still lost them. These are games that they need to win. And if they don't win these types of games, they're in that very tough division, and they're going to come in last place and miss the playoffs. So I don't like seeing that. They need to learn to win some shootouts.
Ty, you're right. Unfortunately, they're in a division where they need to win 2 out of every 3 games, and that means you got to put these guys away that are below you. They haven't been doing that. I think the main reason is probably inconsistent goaltending. Last year, J.C. Bergeron was great. This year, he's struggled a little bit off and on, and Greenlay's really let him down, I think. Although
Greenlay had a nice win. I kind of like the goaltending of Bergeron. I thought he just had a couple of tough losses over there in Phoenix. I just think the team is inconsistent overall. They'll get very good goaltending, but then here it is. Their offense will just not come out. And again, it's almost as if they're finding ways to lose close games, and they really can't afford it.
You're right. Just to mention right quick before we go, they are on TV tomorrow night against Phoenix, I think. It was in Salt Lake City tomorrow night.
I think it's Salt Lake City.
And their next home game is not till the end of the month. They play on the weekends.
Right, Thanksgiving weekend. What is it, Friday and Saturday, I believe.
Mm-hmm. What can we expect from Salt Lake City?
Salt Lake City is a very physical team. I think they usually come in and try to check you off the puck a lot, and you'll probably see quite a few fights tomorrow night if you're a fan of that too. So.
All righty.
Right, I think Salt Lake City. I know you are. I think Salt Lake City and Phoenix both are big physical teams. And Phoenix, whenever they come into the Omni, there's always a bunch of fights. For some reason, they just bring it on the road.
Okay.
I think they have funny uniforms, and they make fun of them. So.
Are they the Mighty Ducks?
No, that's the Roadrunners with the Roadrunner guy with a hockey stick.
Yes.
So I think they probably get a hard time for that.
Right. Well, let's move on to college football and FSU. Do you think they deserve a second chance?
Jeff, what do you think?
I do not. If I was Notre Dame, I'd put my foot down and say, hell no, we're not going to play you again. We've already beat you once. Notre Dame has nothing to gain by playing Florida State again.
I think you had the 2 right words, hell no. There's no way I would want this to happen if I were Notre Dame. First of all, what constitutes Florida State getting a second chance over other teams getting a first chance? Nebraska deserves a first chance. I think the winner of the Miami-West Virginia game deserves a first chance. And here it is. What are we going to do? Give all the breaks to Florida State because their coaches and their players cry more than everyone else, saying, oh, God, year after year, the writers vote us as the best team. You know, that's a bunch of bull. They had their chance in South Bend, and they did not come up. And actually, Notre Dame just pushed those guys around all over the field, and we know who's a better team.
Well, I was going to ask, when you watched the game this weekend, did you expect Notre Dame to be so up and ready for it, or did you expect FSU to win?
Right. When last week, both Jay and I picked Notre Dame to win. I thought Notre Dame would take the ball and run right at them. I thought the key for Florida State was to get Sean Jackson and those quick running backs out on the corner, and they just could not get it done.
Jeff?
Well, I'll admit, I thought Florida State would probably win. I wanted Notre Dame to win. I didn't like Florida State's attitude after they beat Miami. Their players came on TV and said they were already the national champs. Just go ahead and give it to us. And I didn't particularly like that attitude. I'm glad to see them get beat, and I don't want them to get another chance at it.
Okay. Well, hopefully they won't, because I'm a Gator and I hate
FSU.
FSU.
I was going to say, Melissa, I know you're a Florida fan, and maybe they can sort of put a roadblock there for them.
Well, let's hope. And how about Ohio State? Do you think they'll get a shot at national championships?
Well, out there in that Rose Bowl, they're going to be playing a team like USC or UCLA, whoever wins that ball game, and neither one of them have very good records. I mean, the records are okay, but they're not top 5, top 10 caliber. But personally, I think Ohio State's going to lose to Michigan this week. I think Michigan is starting to play well, and they're waiting for those guys. That's Michigan's bowl game this year, and they remember that. Those guys in Ann Arbor remember that tie last year, and that hurt them.
All right, yeah, I think you're right. They are going to try very hard to beat Ohio State, but I don't think they can do it. I think Ohio State's got too much speed this year.
I think Ohio State can be had. I just keep thinking about that game they had at home against Michigan State. They gave up 28 first downs. And Michigan State missed 4 field goals. I think Ohio State can be had.
So what does Michigan State have that makes them the better team?
Michigan, first of all, has a ton of great athletes. What has hurt Michigan on their schedule this year has been lack of speed. at their outside linebacker position. I really think that has hurt them. Here it is, they take a true freshman, Trevor Price, who's about 255, 260 pounds. That big lug needs to be up on the defensive line as a defensive end. They have him out as an outside linebacker. I think they promised him to play him there so they could recruit him. But
I'll tell you where he needs to be instead of outside linebacker in Michigan. He needs to be in Athens playing football for the Bulldogs since he committed to us and then skipped out.
Right, so. Right. But he does need to be on the defensive line.
And you think Ohio State will prevail?
I think Ohio State's going to win. I think the Rose Bowl is a lot of motivation for them. They haven't been in a while, so I don't think they'll trip up this weekend.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Auburn's probation and the significance of that.
I think there's major significance here, Jeff. First of all, I think it really affects the SEC title game. Here it is, the Alabama-Auburn game coming up would be a very huge football game and have a large bearing on that title game. Instead, Alabama's already going. Mm-hmm. And that's the first thing that I think about. The second thing is that they're going to cost the conference a lot of money. First of all, because of their cheating, they're not going to be able to be on TV, and that costs the conference money. Not only that, they have beaten teams that are very close to bowls, like Ole Miss, LSU, Georgia, who could have possibly gotten 6 wins this year, but they lost to Auburn, and again, that just kept the conference from bringing in a lot of extra money in.
Ty, you're right. If Auburn beats Alabama, I think they would obviously be the qualifier from the West. That would put them in the title game against Florida, probably going to the Sugar Bowl. That's a lot of money for the conference, and they've missed 5 or 6 opportunities for TV this year easily.
Well, not only that, they're an undefeated team, and if they would go down there and beat Alabama at home on the plane down there, they would be probably a top 5 team, and getting into that coalition and playing someone big and heavy and with some upsets that can still possibly happen, that could be a very significant television game and give the conference good exposure.
Yeah. Melissa, I think you probably know how we feel about Auburn. We don't like them very
right.
much. And something I read in the paper today just really burned me up. That they took the coalition poll as a combination of the AP and the CNN poll. And since Auburn's not qualified to be in one, they just double their amount of points in the other one to come up with their coalition ranking, which I found unbelievable. Why not just add 0 in their other poll number?
Right, I agree with that.
Now, those polls aren't accurate, are they?
Well,
because Florida, the Florida Gators, they've only lost 1 game this year, and they rank 9th. Now, how could that be?
Well, I think a stronger argument for that case is looking at West Virginia. You got to remember, though, you have coaches voting in certain polls, and you have writers voting in certain polls. And, you have writers all over the country, and a lot of these guys out in the West, they don't see teams in the East and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the polls are all just a matter of opinion of a bunch of sports writers.
I see.
Nothing concrete that they go by.
Huh, okay. Back to Auburn's probation, do you think that this might hurt them in the long run?
I don't think so. As a matter of fact, my feeling right after the game, Jeff, and you were with me, was that it pays to cheat. Here it is. They got a slap on the wrist. You get 1 year off of TV, 1 year where you cannot go to a bowl game.
I think they got 2 years of that.
2 years. Okay. And then they hardly lost any scholarships.
I think they lose 3 for each of the next 2 years, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to hurt them too much. It may hurt them with a little depth, but
it's going to be amplified a little bit by the fact that the scholarship limit's gone down to 85, whereas, for instance, when Georgia was hit back in the early 80s, you were back over 100 back then. So.
Well, here's my argument for Auburn. It's what's their record? It's 10-0, and you look at Georgia, they're 4-6. Well, Georgia's not going to a bowl game anyway, and when you're 4-6, by God, I really don't think you want to be on TV either. So, to me, it just really was a great situation for Auburn. I think they got off really easy, and I don't think they're going to be hurt in the long run at all.
But from a player's point of view, knowing that you will not be able to go to a bowl game for the next year, do you think that maybe they will opt to not go to that school because they won't have that opportunity?
I think if it was going to hurt them in the recruiting standpoint, it would have done it this past year, because then you had 2 years without a bowl game and 1 year, and that's really, 2 years without a bowl, that's half your career at the school.
Right.
So.
They got 2 tremendous recruits last year outside of the state. I thought these 2 kids were going to go to Alabama, and that's Big Willie Anderson, an offensive lineman, and tight end, who was that?
Jesse McCovery.
Right.
And the reason you thought they were going to Alabama is because they committed to Alabama, and somehow they wound up at Auburn. So.
Oh, sounds familiar now, doesn't it? I'd like to remind everyone that we are a live show, and you can call in. The number here is 873-6713. And let's talk about Alabama at Auburn while we're on the subject.
Jeff, Terry Bowden this week has just been rambling on and on that they've got the best team in the SEC. I think he's showing he's a rookie coach handling the press. A guy like Gene Stallings is a class veteran at this. He would just be saying, oh, well, I think our team's pretty good. We got some pretty good football players. We got good kids. He wouldn't live it up. Bowden is making himself, you might as well paint a bullseye on this guy. I think he's really teeing himself up just like Steve Spurrier does down there at Florida.
I was about to mention, it sounds like Spurrier 3 years ago when they won the conference.
Sounds like Steve Spurrier Jr. And these people at Alabama, I got news for you. That game against Mississippi State, I could assure you, during that week, they were preparing for Auburn.
I know we have a phone call. What's the injury situation at Alabama, and are they going to have everybody healthy this week?
No, they're not. No. Stevenson is hurt. That's one of their best offensive linemen. Sherman Williams, the running back, has had a hurt shoulder all year long. They are still a very banged-up team. I think Shannon Brown, a backup defensive lineman, or now he's been thrown into the starting lineup because of all the injuries. He's hurt. Alabama's got a lot of bang-up people. Those games with Tennessee and Ole Miss really hurt them.
And the game is at Auburn, and with Alabama's injuries in mind, I think I'll pick Auburn because they're going to be more motivated. Alabama is in the title game already. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be as motivated to win Saturday. So.
Home team advantage as well.
Right.
Right. Okay. Well, we do have a phone call. Hi, caller. You're on the air.
Hello, Melissa, and hello, fellas.
Hi.
Melissa, I'm glad you're back, honey child.
Thank you very much.
Missed you out here. About the quarterback with FSU. Word has it around here that he might jump ranks and turn pro. Is that a little bit premature in his case, or either is he just riding a crest of popularity?
Good question.
He's talking about Charlie Ward, I would assume. He's
Right.
a senior this year, so he's definitely going pro.
Right. Thing is, Jeff, where's he going to go? I mean, you just wonder, is he going to go basketball or is he going to go football? If he wins the Heisman Trophy, which he has an excellent chance for, of course, his agent, which this day and age, these kids have agents. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. His agent's going to sit there and find out where he's most marketable. And if he wins a Heisman Trophy, it's going to be football. And he's going to see what type of contract he can get him.
I see. Thanks, fellas, and also Mimi, don't you go nowhere.
All righty. Thank you.
Thanks for the call. Jeff, going back to this Auburn-Alabama thing, I think Alabama's going to win. I think Auburn was really got a lot of things going against a very bad Georgia defense. Here it is. We constantly saw third and long situations. I mean, here it was. They were winning 28-14, I believe. They're down there around their own 20. It's 3rd and 8. They throw a fullback screen to the left. Okay, first down. Next series of downs, it's 3rd and 12. So Bowden's going to really pull something out of his sleeve. He's going to really trick the Georgia coaches. He throws a fullback screen to the right side this time, gets 17 yards out of Reed McMillan, and here it is. A few plays later, they break a long touchdown run, and there it is. It's a 3-touchdown game. That's not going to happen against a team like Alabama. And even when they had those injuries, they got a really good defensive coach in Bill Oliver, and those things are just not going to happen. They will not get away with constant 3rd and longs and get touchdowns. No, it's just not going to happen.
So Ty's going with Alabama, and I'm going with Auburn.
I'll go with the Tide.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the Dogs. And they had a disappointing season. What do you think the reasons are?
Jeff, you hit on that first. You see all these influential people, and you talk to them every week.
That's right. You've got
Jeff
the connection.
has got the inside scoop.
me?
He knows more than the paper.
He's hot.
Well, I think I'm going to place most of the blame on the defensive coaching side. I think we had plenty of talent up there to win 7 or 8 ball games this year. And the fact that we didn't, I'm going to have to blame the defensive coaches. I think the players themselves may have quit and didn't put any effort forth after that South Carolina loss.
Yeah. When you look at this team, the obvious Achilles heel is the weak defensive line. I think the pass blocking schemes for the offense were too complicated. They didn't figure that out until Ole Miss nearly killed a quarterback. Their running backs are not flexible enough. They couldn't get enough out of them with their not knowing if they can block or if they can catch a pass. And for Frank Harvey's case, even if he can keep his feet, he's always falling down. And I think that the coaching thing, the evaluation of talent. I don't know if these guys know how to evaluate talent that well. It seems that they've had a lot of really good recruiting classes, but a lot of these guys don't come through. And you saw Goff Monday, and he was sitting there telling people, don't put a lot of stock into these recruiting services because they miss on a whole lot of people. And perfect examples are people like Mike Friedenberg, Mario Nolan, who 2 years ago, those guys were considered all-world, and everyone wanted them, and they just didn't pan out.
I think the biggest example is probably Sterling Boyd, and I think it's been decided up there that he's not a football player, and I'd be surprised to see him in Athens next year.
He could transfer.
So you mentioned the coaching staff. Do you think it's a question of getting totally new coaching, or is it just a new motivation? I mean, is the tactics that they're using, are they not working, or is it a conflict somewhere else?
Well, I'd like to see, from my personal standpoint, I'd like to see a whole new coaching staff on the defensive side with a new philosophy and new schemes to run.
So it's a combination of both.
Right. I think we played too passive on defense for the type of athletes that we have up there.
Right. When you look at those guys that Auburn hit and you look at their secondary, I mean, they just teed off on people, and they didn't even have the best one back there, Freddie Smith, who was injured at the beginning of the year. I think Goff is going to stay. But Jeff has told me that it looks like 2 defensive coaches are going to go and 1 offensive coach. Personally, I would do it differently. If you sit there and if you have a lot of changes on your defensive staff, and if Eric Zier leaves, you might very well have another losing season. And if you do, well, then you're going to have to look at getting rid of your head coach. That's showing a lot of instability. You're making too many changes with your coaches. If it were up to me, I would go out there and talk to a guy like Barry Alvarez up at Wisconsin and see how he would like to take over the job, see if he wants to keep some of the offensive coaches around, because I do think they know what they're doing, a young guy like Steve Ensminger. And then let Alvarez basically bring in who he wants to on the defensive side, because he knows how to coach defense. He was a defensive coordinator up there at Notre Dame during those championship years with Lou Holtz.
Okay. Well, we have a phone call. Hi, caller, you're on the air. Hello? Maybe not. Sorry for interrupting you there.
No.
We might have put him on hold for too long there. I don't know.
Right, so it's a combination of new coaching, new philosophy.
Right, another weak area is that kicking game. Scott Armstrong, although he punted very well Saturday, Cannon Parkman kicked very well Saturday on his kickoffs, but during the year, I thought that Georgia had a very weak kicking game.
Okay, I think we've got that phone call now. Hi, caller, you're on the air. Hello? Maybe not.
Those technical difficulties again.
Hey, we're still going along here. Now, I haven't been here for about a month, but I want to know, how do you guys think, the Gators are doing? My team.
The Gators, unfortunately, are playing some pretty good football.
All right.
I think if you're looking at the weekend after this, Florida State has to go to Gainesville to play. Steve Spurrier hasn't lost a game in Gainesville since he's been there that I know of.
Nope, I haven't seen it happen either. Florida is an awesome team at home. When they're on the road, they're a little questionable, but hey, they got it done this year. They beat Kentucky at the last second up there in Lexington. They fell behind 17-0 to South Carolina, came back and won with some big plays. This is a team that, they lost to Auburn on the road, and that's been their only loss. But Auburn had some big plays. Let me tell you something that this Auburn team has done. They have gotten 3 interceptions at least this year that have been returned for touchdowns. Florida was about to score on them. They threw an interception down there at the end. One end was returned all the way down at the other end, touchdown. Here it is. They returned one for a touchdown against Georgia off of a batted pass, and they returned one for a touchdown against Arkansas.
Okay, well, we have a phone call. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
Oh, I can't hear.
Hi, you're on the air. Go ahead with your question.
Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
I guess he said he can't hear.
He must not have his TV up.
Maybe not. Do you want to go ahead and comment on
Call
that?
back. Maybe we can get you on.
Okay.
All right, we're talking about the Gators, and I wanted to mention the Florida State-Florida game, Ty. They've got 2 things in their advantage to set up an upset in that game. One of is if they're at home, which they appear to be unbeatable. We know Florida State is beatable because they've already lost. And the fact that Florida State may be looking ahead to that Notre Dame bowl game.
Could be. I think that Florida State matches up with Florida really well. That's the one thing that concerns me. If Florida's going to win, I think they're going to have to take the ball and run right at them just like Notre Dame did. And they've got a big, tough I-back like Eric Rett who can run well. They just need to keep him healthy. And their quarterback has to be consistent and has to have a good game. They can't have Danny Werfel out there playing like he did against Georgia.
Well, he's been inconsistent all year. I think that may be their Achilles heel there as the quarterback.
Right, the young quarterback.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the NFL and the Falcons. Do you think they can hold on for a winning season?
I don't think they'll go 500. They're 3-6 right now. The 2 out of their 3 wins, Jeff, have been against the Rams, and I think the Rams are just one of the worst teams in the NFL. Here it is. The Falcons have the worst defense. They're number 28, I believe. They're 26 against the run, and here it is. They shut out the Rams. So that is a bad football
Well,
team.
you said the key words. They've beaten the Rams twice, so what does that tell you about the Rams?
Right, right. Well, what does the rest of their season look up? I mean, who are they playing next?
They got the game with the Cowboys coming up, and I think Dallas is going to take the ball and run it right at them, and I think Emmitt Smith is going to have well over 100 yards, and I think Dallas will have over 200 yards rushing. I think they'll win. I think they'll beat the Falcons by almost 20 points.
Well, the only thing that's going in the Falcons' favor this weekend is the fact that Troy Aikman may not play again. They may have Bernie Kosar starting at quarterback, and that's going to be a big advantage for the Falcons. With a weak pass rush, he's sort of ineffective as far as getting out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, like you mentioned before, coaching with Georgia, do you think the same problem could be here?
Not so much as far as the defensive coaching. I think as far as the head coaching spot for the Falcons, you may see a change at the end of the year.
I think you will. I mean, this team lost to Tampa Bay at home. You just can't build success like that. The purpose of having an NFL team is to win championships, and losing games to Tampa Bay at home doesn't get it.
Okay. Well,
That was a critical game as far as momentum for the season that they lost.
well, we have another phone call. Hi, caller, you're on the air. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, you're on the air.
You can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to ask your opinion about the West Virginia-Miami game coming up this Saturday,
Okay.
and I would appreciate some feedback on that since I lay a little shekel on the game every now and then.
Okay.
Hey, we're not tracing your call, so don't worry about that.
Well, first of all, West Virginia's quarterback got hurt, and I think he is going to play Kelchner.
I think they held him out this week just because of that.
Right, but Miami's a 5.5-point pick in this game. I think Miami has lost their one game for the year. I think they're going to go up there, and this is almost going to be a showing to America, hey, this is what we can do. And they're hearing those people over there in Tallahassee complaining that they should have another chance. Well, those people down there in Miami are hearing that, and trust me, they're going to go out there and show something. They want to prove on national TV, it's an ESPN game, I believe, that they should play Notre Dame. So if they have a chance to run up the score, Miami, running up the score is nothing new to them. If they get a chance, they'll do that. But West Virginia, that's going to be a hard game up there in Morgantown, but I just think Miami's going to come out and play one of their better games.
Jeff?
I think West Virginia, on the other hand, is going to have the same motivation. I mean, they're undefeated, and they don't have any respect. They're like number 6 or 7.
Don Nehlen's done a good job. He's had a good running game. I think Miami's going to want to take the run away from him. I mean, here it is. West Virginia grounded out 35 first downs on Syracuse over there at the Dome, and they're just a team that really likes to run the football, and that helps them set up the pass. I really think Miami's going to take that away from them.
Okay, well, we thank you for your call and hope that we helped in placing your wager.
Thank you.
And
I tell you what, though, I know a couple of guys that wager, and they'll ask me how I feel about a game, and if I like one team, well, then they'll bet on the other one, and they'll win. So.
you hear that? You heard that here now. We hold
A couple of
nothing.
those guys are driving new cars this year, aren't they, Tom?
I tell you what. And then they're having, they hired a couple of auditors as well.
Right, right. Well, are there any other significant games that we need to look out for in the NFL?
Well, I think one of the games involves Jay Marks' Green Bay team. They're 5-4. They're playing the division leaders, the Lions. Game's at Milwaukee. I mean, here it is, a big game of the year like that for them. And here they're playing it in crummy Milwaukee. I mean, that game needs to be in Green Bay at Lambeau Field. But Green Bay needs that game badly, and Detroit is about the quietest 7-2 team I've seen. I think Green Bay's going to win that game.
Yeah, Green Bay's one of those teams that's at 5-4 right now. You got like 5 or 6 of them that
Right.
You got to start picking up a few wins if you're going to make the playoffs. So.
I think another significant game is out there in the Rocky Mountains with Pittsburgh and Denver. Again, I think Pittsburgh, they've gotten the lead a little bit in the Central. They would really like to spread that, but then here it is. You got Denver, who's trying to keep up pace with Kansas City. Denver got stung by Minnesota last week at home. I don't think they're going to lose at home 2 weeks in a row. I like Denver.
No, they don't lose very often at home. I wouldn't look for them to lose 2 in a row. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, was awesome on Monday Night Football.
They were, but that gives you one less day of preparation. A lot of teams really struggle with that one less day. Jeff, going to a game here in our conference is New Orleans at San Francisco. I believe that's the Monday night game. Mm-hmm. Their records are even now. I think here's a revenge factor. San Francisco cruised into the Superdome earlier this year and got dumped there, but I think they've gotten their offense on track. They're playing very well now. They're scoring a lot of points. I think another issue here is that at the beginning of the year they had a definite weakness, defense in the running game because the Falcons ran on them. Seifert's a great coach. I think he's made the proper changes and adjustments. San Francisco's playing a lot better defense. I look for them to win that game and the division.
I would agree with you. San Francisco put over 40 on the board Sunday. On the other hand, New Orleans, I think people are starting to figure out Wade Wilson, and they've struggled a little bit offensively lately. And I look for the 49ers to win.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on to the NBA. And how about an evaluation of the Hawks?
Jeff, when I look at this Hawks team, they're not shooting well from the field, and they just came back from a road trip where they went 0-4. You got to be able to win on the road sometime. They're at home tonight. Last I heard, they were really struggling with the weak Sacramento team at home. They shoot about 41% from the field. It's not good enough. Their opponents are shooting about 45%. And the Hawks are getting out-rebounded by an average of about 10 a game. You cannot let that happen and then shoot a poor field goal percentage than your opponents. That's just not going to win games. Not only that, sometimes they just don't shoot free throws well. Mm-hmm. They didn't shoot them well against Seattle. They did not shoot them well at all at Chicago.
Well, the Hawks have a new coach this year, Lenny Wilkins, and I sort of looked for at the beginning of the year for him to struggle for 10 or 15 games to pick up his system. And I think once they enter the second quarter of the season that you'll see him pick the pace up a little bit.
Well, let's hope so.
You think they'll make the playoffs?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, we have a phone call. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
Pressbox, how y'all doing?
Just
All right.
fine. How you doing?
Well, I heard y'all talking a little earlier about the Auburn-Alabama game, and then my TV went down, so I've been having trouble getting in. But that's a topic I've been talking about all week. And did I hear right? My TV just went off. Did y'all pick Alabama?
I liked Alabama.
I have to point at Ty here. He picked Alabama.
I liked Alabama. Jeff liked Auburn.
Well, I guess you picked it on reputation and lack of schedule on Auburn's part, but I think it really comes down to one word. That word is beef. Beef on the line of
Beef
Auburn,
on the
beef
line.
in the backfield of Auburn.
Where's the beef?
On the field with Auburn. They're too big for Alabama to stop, I think.
They're very physical. As a matter of fact, that's one of the first things I noticed about them this year when I was watching film with them with their game at Louisiana State, and that's where I first saw their size and their toughnness. They're just not big. They're tough on the line.
Have you ever seen beef like that? They are huge.
They're
Bostic.
big. Randy Hart was a big recruit out of Enterprise. They got the junior transfer player, Gary Walker. Damon Primus was a big-time JC transfer. They are big.
Steve Davis can run that ball, too.
Steve Davis is good. I was more impressed with Bostic.
Oh, yeah. More beef there.
Bostic, I thought, really, you're right.
I think
Bostic's
the
a heck of a
caller's not a
runner.
vegetarian.
No.
But
You want a hamburger?
But what concerns me for Auburn are those third and longs, and they were very successful against Georgia. They were not. I don't know if they'll be that successful at third and long against Alabama.
I'll tell you before we let you go, what Alabama needs to do to win that game is play David Palmer at quarterback the whole game.
Oh, no way. That guy can't throw the ball as far as he can throw his knee out. Let me tell you
You can't
that.
catch him. You can't catch the guy though. You got to give him
All right,
that.
you might as well just loft in the air, get under itself, catch it, take it for a touchdown.
Hey, I think they're putting that play in this week.
Okay, well,
right.
I'd like to thank you very much for calling, but we do have to wrap it up for
right.
Thanks for the
tonight.
call.
Thanks so much, though. Thank you so much for stepping in for Jay this week.
No problem.
Yeah, and
Be
Ty.
happy to come back.
All righty, well, come back whenever you would like. Y'all tune in next Tuesday. We'll be here, and we hope that you will be too. Thanks a lot.